tonight's Game 2 between the Sixers and Knicks due to ankle and hip injuries. Embiid took some shots to the lower body in Game 7 against the Celtics. He played in Game 1 versus New York, but only had 14 points and 4 rebounds in the blowout loss. So let's bring in Shams Charania himself. And Shams, tell us what went into the Sixers' decision to rule out Joel Embiid.
I'm told the 76ers made the decision this afternoon to rule Joel Embiid out for tonight's Game 2 after he woke up with soreness in that hip and ankle area. And then all morning, as well as last night, Embiid tried around-the-clock treatment. He was unable to participate in shoot-around this morning, and he spent the entire morning, I'm told, on the training table trying to see if he can get enough treatment to loosen up that hip and get that ankle right, but he was not able to do so, and the team made the decision. So now Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, VJ Edgecombe will take on the Knicks tonight. No Joel Embiid. He was the savior in Game 7 to lift this team to the second round, but he is out tonight. His status uncertain moving forward.
Yeah, that is huge news, Shams. Shams, thank you for joining us. And the 76ers have been unsurprisingly less effective on both ends without their star center this postseason. Philly is averaging fewer points in the paint and recording fewer assists without Embiid manning the middle, while its defense has struggled without the 3-time all-defensive team member. The Sixers are 3-2 with Embiid, 1-2 without him.
All right, let's talk about these big developments with the Hall of Famer, Michael Wilbon, our Chiney Ogwumike. And Chiney, let me start with you. How exactly will Embiid's absence, you think, be felt in Game 2?
This is a huge blow for the Philadelphia 76ers because Joel Embiid is the one that really you have to key in on for them to have their success, because when he plays well, there's nothing you can do about it. Now, without him, we've seen circumstances where VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey have knocked down multiple threes, but it is a very tight rope for them to be competitive, especially against a New York Knicks squad that is playing their best version of basketball. Right now, if I'm Karl-Anthony Towns, I am salivating because we understood that Jalen Brunson did everything. He did bad all by himself, 27 points in the first half, finished with 35 on the night. They will be keyed in on him, which allows Karl-Anthony Towns to cook. We've seen him have 2 triple-doubles already in the postseason, and now he can really expect to dominate all areas of the floor. This might be the cat game, knowing that Joel Embiid is out.
Today, you're so right. A huge blow to the Sixers, obviously, who now have so little, tiny little margin for error. The one thing is they've played enough without him that the news probably doesn't come as a shock to them, even though it's a surprise and a disappointment to those of us on the outside looking in. We would presume that Drummond, who averages 8 rebounds a game, will be in there for most of those minutes, played 63 games this season. But without Joel Embiid, and one of the things I was looking forward to seeing was what kind of pressure a healthy Embiid and a Maxey could put on the Knicks defense, which they did not do any of that in Game 1, and they probably couldn't. If we think Joel Embiid is, suffering right now and has to be ruled out for the night, he was out there trying to play on this in Game 1, and it just wasn't going to work at all. So now the Sixers have to try to figure out what they're going to do without it. This is one of those games you can say, wait a minute. They won a game in Boston, and they did, without Joel Embiid. Remember, he only played 4 games in that first series. But the Knicks are a different animal right now. I don't know that they're going to try to play with the stubborn defiance that the Celtics and their 3-point obsessiveness that was on display in the games, in that whole series, but particularly also games 1 and 2. The Knicks won't be doing that. And as Chiney pointed out, Karl-Anthony Towns, what you don't want to have via the Knicks coaches and staff is having him take a sigh of relief. But that's human nature, Chiney. I'm sure you played in situations like that where you got an opponent, a top-flight opponent who's not going to be there, and there is a sigh of relief, and people talk about a letdown. That may be momentary. With the way the Knicks are rolling, I don't expect that to last for long.
So, Chiney, when we talk about this matchup, let's go to the point guard matchup because you've got Maxey, you got Jalen Brunson. That one really stands out to me. Brunson's coming off that game-high 35 in Game 1. Maxey only had 13. What do you make of Brunson's impact so far in this series?
At this point in the NBA playoffs, it's heavyweights only, right? Top teams and top players. And you know what they say, Wilbon? Styles make fights. I was never in a fight, okay? So I don't really know how to punch. But the style here amongst the point guards will dictate things. Jalen Brunson won game one because he forced Maxey to play his style. Physical, off the dribble. He scored his second most points in an NBA game with pull-ups. He was 6 for 7 on pull-up shots. You see that right there, countless. Even, when the ball goes in like that, you're living on the right side of it. But Tyrese Maxey, his style, he can also force Brunson to play that. Speed kills. He could play fast. He could play aggressive. He is the fastest player on the floor. So if he forces the defenders for the Knicks to play to his style, he's at an advantage itself. So, yeah, the styles, they're going to the Knicks might try to do a little knockout punch, Wilbon. But right now, the Sixers, they still have a great option under their sleeve with their point guard.
Well, we saw it in Game 7 particularly. With 3 possessions late in that game where Philadelphia is trying to hold on to that lead that would get them this far in the next series. And we saw Maxey 3 times just decide, that's it. No threes, I'm going to the basket. Layup, and then 2 free throws. So those 3 possessions were critical to win that Game 7 in Boston. We're going to have to see a whole lot of that from Maxey and Edgecombe. Today, you know that, of course, there were games this year that, reason that Edgecombe finished, I think, 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting. He is able to put on a burner himself. And now they're going to have to rely on that and see what kind of pressure they can put on the Knicks. They were going to need those 2 guys, though, even with Embiid to get Game 2 tonight. Now they're going to need them and Paul George. We're going to have to see. And look, there have been some hints that Paul George is really capable of that. We've seen the 3-ball falling for him. And so they're going to need all 3 of those guys tonight in A-plus form to even this series without their big man.
Really good points there, guys. Sit tight. We're going to hear your perspective on another series. Scooby?
All right, Brian, from the east to the west, Game 2 of Timberwolves Spurs is tonight at 9:30 Eastern on ESPN. Anthony Edwards returned from a knee injury earlier than anticipated and gave the Wolves a lift in Game 1. Edwards scored 18 points in 25 minutes off the bench. As Minnesota stole a game in San Antonio by 2 points, the Wolves pulled off the win despite trailing entering the fourth. It's the Wolves' 6th playoff win over the last 3 seasons when trailing entering the final period, tied with the Thunder for the 2nd most in the NBA. The Wolves are 3-1 against the Spurs this season, one of 3 teams with a winning record against them, along with the Cavaliers and Nuggets. That includes outscoring the Spurs by an average of 11.5 points in the fourth. Chiney, I'm going to come to you first. Wemby made a huge impact on the defensive end by throwing a block party and inviting the entire Wolves organization with the playoff record 12 blocks. But offensively, he kept it chill, and it wasn't by choice, just 11 points. What do you make of Wemby's impact there?
Victor Wembanyama is the most intriguing, upside, talented, out-of-this-world player. But anytime he shoots threes, his opposing coach, this being Chris Finch, breathes a sigh of relief because at least he's not going downhill. He was 0 for 8 from 3, and anytime he is missing from 3, that is a gift from the gods because that means you're not having to deal with what he can do around the basket. And so I know this is a guy that understands he has one of the highest basketball IQs. I don't think he's going to settle or just shoot threes in Game 2. But that is an adjustment, knowing that when the shot is not falling, how do I make an impact where people cannot guard me? There was one play, and I'm sure Wilbon saw this, one play where they did an inverted drag screen in transition. That meant the guard screened for Wemby, and Wemby got the ball, took one dribble and one stride, and had a dunk. That is unguardable. And so seeing more of those plays will protect you so that you can play inside and out and use your 3 as just the icing on the cake, Wilbon.
Yeah, the 0 for 8 is like, oh, no. And there's some nights where he could take 8 threes and he builds toward it because he's hit 3 of the first 5 or something and he gets to 8. That's not going to work in Game 2 as well. First of all, I can't believe he would take that approach. I'm sure they've talked about it obsessively, Chiney, for the last 48 hours. But Wemby and De'Aaron Fox are going to have to hit some outside shots, some threes, Fox particularly from 3. But Wembanyama, if he can have that, I'm not going to say the same impact defensively. And the other thing is the Wolves are, unafraid. I mean, they are bold. They are continuing to go in there despite those shots being blocked. And their coach, Chris Finch, has done a wonderful job of alerting the referees, hey, fellas, call some goaltends and a vintage coaching performance on the day off to alert everybody that there should have been at least, he said 4, I don't know about 4, but a couple. If you get a couple, look, 2 baskets like that can change the result of a game, obviously. So Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, those are the 2 guys I'm looking for a lot different results from tonight. But one quick thing in closing about this, the experience or lack thereof, this is what those of us who are saying, hold on, don't crown San Antonio just yet. Championships are going to come anyway. Don't crown them just yet. You look at the other side, and you got Rudy Gobert with like 93 playoff games under his belt, all right? And you got a certain 39-year-old point guard from Minnesota who's got, I think, 115 or 113 games under his belt, and Mike Conley Jr., playoff games I'm talking about. The Spurs can't match that. So that experience certainly helped in a thin margin in game 1. We'll see what San Antonio can do about it in game 2.
All right, so Chiney and Michael will be back shortly to talk about tonight's action. So, America, stay tuned. Thank you, guys.